Some odd days ago, probably a couple weeks at the rate that I write scripts, I said Wandering Witch, The Journey of Elaina was going to be a strong contender for anime of the season. Well, we're about 5 to 6 weeks into the new anime season, and while it's getting attention, Jujutsu Kaisen is most likely going to be claiming the title of anime of the season. Actually, as of writing this, it has claimed the #1 spot, but there was something I noticed about Wandering Witch. Not only has it been in a consistent 3rd place spot, but it seems to be getting looked over and people were dropping it 2 to 3 episodes in. Granted, I'm not going to sit here yelling at you to watch it, I'll leave that type of behavior to the JoJo fandom. I do think that people have overlooked what makes Wandering Witch so good. If you haven't already checked out my other video about Wandering Witch, be sure to check it out because we got to get those watch times up. I'm trying to get sponsored by Crunchyroll and Sprite. Before we jump into why Wandering Witch is so special and why anyone else who disagrees is wrong, be sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the bell to make sure you stay up to date whenever I post a new video. Now, my little lost lambs, sit back, relax, and allow your shepherd to guide you to the truth. A quick rundown so you have the gist of what's going on. Chibi Elaina reads a book. She wants to be witch. Small Elaina passes test. But bigger witches won't teach Small Elaina. Small Elaina becomes sad. Weird Witch trains Small Elaina. Elaina gets pounded by Weird Witch. Small Elaina learns lesson and becomes Ashen Elaina. Ashen Elaina goes on journey. Everything I just said to you is exactly how these chads are interpreting the anime. The cartoons we watched at a younger age had small lessons to be learned by the end of them. Some being don't steal or that lying is bad, and to some degree I get that. We want to teach our children to not think that type of behavior is okay. But here's the thing, those cartoons were targeted for kids. Most people who watch anime are anywhere from 14 to 45, and depending on the anime, that target age can fluctuate. Wandering Witch is one of those anime that does provide some hidden lessons to be learned, but it can be applied to just about anyone who watches them, no matter what the age. Episode 1 kicks off with Elaina wanting to be a witch, so she puts her nose to the grind and studies until she's able to take her exam and she ends up passing it. She becomes the youngest in history, and we aren't given much background knowledge, but based on how the older witches treated her, it becomes obvious that this test wasn't something to be passed at such a young age. And you might think it's pretty far-fetched that all these older witches would just slam the door in her face, but we naturally resent people who can achieve a dream we cannot. That's just the fact of life. In just this first episode, Elaina was taught 3 important things: humility, how to handle failure, and not to put up with anyone's bullshit. Sure, small lessons like don't be an asshole or stealing is wrong, but those are some pretty basic lessons and stuff that is taught when we are young. What most of us aren't taught though is how to handle failure. How to realize that we're on a high horse and that we aren't as special as we initially thought. I'm 23 and just now learning it's okay for me to say no to people. It's things like this that go unnoticed from certain viewers. Let's assume for a second, Elena's mom hadn't told her that she wasn't all shit. Growing up, exceeding at everything has really big negative effects. You start to think that you're above everyone else, and that's how you go and become those type of individuals who are super stuck up and think the world owes them everything. So when you are finally met with a roadblock, you either blame someone else or something else, aka become a Karen, or you just completely break from shock. Oops, my bad. I forgot Karen was a racial slur. It's just as bad as the N-word, guys, so don't use the word Karen. Use bitch instead. Real life isn't some fairy tale. It sucks for some and sucks less for others. If Elaina is out here playing hero and getting mixed up in other people's business, she's basically rushing toward her own death. It's not that she doesn't care, she's just a tourist, an outsider, and other people's affairs isn't any of her business. Some people say that the first episodes were pretty boring, but I like to say that you're just an idiot. Within the first couple minutes of episode 2, it lets you know that if you don't have a witch's brooch, we're gonna say Bruce, I think Bruce is the right one, then you just are not shit. She tries to find an end to stay at and keeps getting turned away because she's seen as some random bum. Episode 3 is where things take a drastic shift. This boy is collecting happy memories to show his maid. Now they say maid, but she's a slave. And not being able to live for herself, being trapped with nowhere to go, so Mr. Bowlcut starts collecting happy memories to show her in hopes of cheering her up. Elaina recalls a story about the same situation. A wife who's unable to leave the house. So her husband travels around the world to recreate these beautiful sceneries that he's seen to show her. And this was a great thought, right? Doing something nice for someone who's unable to travel for themselves. It seems like a great idea. Well, Elaina gets to their home and it becomes clear what type of tomfoolery is going on. I'm sure all of us were thinking that Elaina was going to help that maid, but she just kind of left without doing anything. As she flew away, she remembered the ending of that story. The beautiful scenes that the husband had brought back only caused her to become more depressed, and she voluntarily passed away. Now that was some cold shit. Just because you're doing something for someone else doesn't make it right. Remember, her mom told her 3 things. Run if things look dangerous. Don't think you're someone special because you're just like everyone else. And to come back safely. Everyone's going on and on about how Elaina doesn't do anything to help others, and to be honest, she's doing the exact same thing anyone else would do. How many homeless people do you pass by? What about those people who stand on the corner begging for money? What do you do when you drive by in your car? You try not to look at them, and you just keep driving. Now, I'm not saying you don't help out the less fortunate. I'm sure you go around the city breaking up illegal bum fights every night. But what I love about this anime is that it's realistic. Everything doesn't always work out. And for those of you who are going, well, bad things don't always happen that often, I say this to you. Slavery ended in 1865. Someone called me a nigger in Kroger just last month. Just because bad things aren't happening doesn't mean that in that time, good things are happening. And it's crazy because all this time I haven't even talked about the story, the art, or even the animation. It goes without saying that I think Wandering Witch Elaina is the top anime of the season, but at the end of the day, this is my humble opinion and people are going to naturally gravitate toward action. If you take anything away from this video, it's to keep an open mind and get off your high horse. You might learn something new.